Oh my goodness, it's been a week, a little over a week that I've been gone on vacation, but it was quite the ordeal with my family. So I'll share about that in another time. But today, I hear you. We're going to talk about validation. So fasten your seatbelt because it's been a while since I get the cue on target because you may not hear the sound music. Oh, there we go. There it is. Hey, Michael, it's time to dance. What time is it over there?
It is 6 a.m.
Yay!
The glorious time of day.
Where do you live?
Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Very nice. Here we go. This is where we get to really shine. There you go. Get all the jitters out. Right here. And when you need a friend, you can try. Get all my routine down, Pat. Oh,
Yeah, you should have a full-on dance to this by this point.
Yeah. Well, I whatever the other person's doing, what I do. You can do the head bop. We can do the head bop. Well, here we go.
Turn two when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who have been joining us over and over again for the last 7 years, I am so grateful. If you just stumbled upon this yesterday, I'm so grateful. Thank you for joining us again. But if this is the first time that you have joined the show, let me tell you, I've been waiting for you. The show is about being a friend and having a safe place where you can go to. And it is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal. And it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, today, we're going to be giving a book called I Hear You. And let me tell you, when I first started thinking about, validation, how important is validation? It turns out it's very important. And so today we're going to be giving away the book called I Hear You by Michael S. Sorensen. And you can find Michael at michaelssorensen.com. But for now, let me just set it all up. Now, two people will listen to the same thing, but hear something totally different. Some people need to be heard, and we'll find out what's the difference between someone hearing you and someone listening to you. So today we have reader, researcher, personal development junkie, Michael Sorensen. He's the author of I Hear You, and he's going to share the secrets of listening that will change the way we approach our relationships, not just with you, but around the globe. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful that Michael has joined us today to do just that. Welcome, Michael, to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. So share a little bit about yourself and why you wrote this book.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny. I'm a pretty ordinary guy, if I'm being honest. A lot of people, when I published this book, said, "Oh, how fantastic! I bet you always wanted to be an author. I bet you just always wanted to write something." And I laugh and I say, "No, I never aspired to be an author. I never aspired to write a book." How I got here is actually a number of years ago. I started seeing a therapist to get some help working through a number of issues in my life. Mm-hmm. And I quickly found out that there are a lot of tools that you can learn from therapy, from a good therapist, that you don't learn in normal education in the everyday world.
Sure.
And so I learned all sorts of tips and tricks to improve my relationships, to help me connect better with people. And one of those in particular was especially valuable. And that was this principle of validation that you mentioned, Lillian. And I started seeing this principle, this skill, make a huge difference in my life, in my personal relationships with my family, with the women that I was dating, at work. I'm a manager of about 25 people. This principle, skill of validation, which is essentially helping someone feel heard and understood, was making such a big difference in my life that I was trying to share it with other people. I was talking to a friend about it one day, and he's like, what is this validation? What are you talking about? And I was having such a hard time explaining it. I tried to find a book on it. I tried to find something, and there wasn't much out there. There were a few blog posts, but not anything that taught it in the way that I felt was most valuable.
Sure.
And so as really a couple months went on, I continued to have experience after experience, helping me connect better with people, helping me appease anger, right? Or helping a difficult situation diffuse, to the point that ultimately this thought came into my head, well, you should write a book on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, then my inner critic shot back and said, well, who are you to write a book?
Sure.
You're not a therapist, you're not an author, you're not whatever. But the thought persisted. And honestly, I felt almost compelled to pay it forward, so to speak. And so ultimately I decided to sit down and write the book. And I published it just over a year ago and self-published everything myself. And since then, it's sold over 15,000 copies. It's being translated into Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, and I'm receiving feedback from readers all over the world. It's consistently an Amazon #1 bestseller in multiple categories.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that when I was researching you. I saw that it said bestseller. And that is amazing, especially as you portray yourself in the book and in life. You don't call yourself an expert. You don't call yourself, degreed in this, but you are a curious student of life. And it goes to show you that when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. And so those are the things that we're going to be talking about today and if you would like a copy of the book, I Hear You, it's the surprisingly simple skill behind extraordinary relationships, and be the 5th caller or texter at 407-373-5959. That's 407-373-5959. So are you thinking that you're a good listener? Well, let's think again, because even I consider myself a good listener, have some issues with validation. I think we have misconceptions about validation and what it means and how powerful this tool is. And we're going to continue our conversation with Michael Sorensen when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Here we go. So, Michael, I know that you said that you did not set out to write a book, but now that you've written a book, how has that changed you? Has it changed the people around you?
That's really a great question. It's certainly changed me, seeing the impact that the book is having. I'm both humbled and excited at the success that it's had. Really, what it's done for me, though, is shown me, it's validated me, and that this is a valuable skill. This has improved my life. I tried to pay it forward, and it's thrilling to see how it's impacted other people. And so, as I go throughout day to day, of course, I'm even more interested in my own relationship. I'm far from the perfect person, right? My relationships are not perfect, but it makes me even more curious about what does make a healthy relationship? How do we connect better with other human beings? It's something that has really heightened my own awareness and my own seeking.
Yeah, I understand. I get it. And, there's so many times that I am a great validator, but there are other times where I say, get over it, get over it. It happened.
right.
Stop it. And like I had to talk to my dad about this last week. It's like, okay, Daddy, stop, just stop whatever you're doing. You just need to stop doing whatever, because he was feeling sad. And we needed for him to be strong for my mom. And so I said to my dad, you just got to be out there. When you go out there, you just got to be strong. You got to be Superman. But in here, you and I can talk. Sometimes you just got to snap people back into it.
You can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
Let me see.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 473-59. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where we always learn and grow together. Today's teacher is Michael S. Sorensen. He's the author of the book, I Hear You. And for those of us who believe we are good listeners, think again. There may be a tiny little piece of listening or hearing somebody that we might be missing. So today we have Michael Sorensen. He's the author of this book, to explain how validation can make a huge difference between connecting with the other person. Okay, so Michael, I just got to put you on the hot seat here. You know, there are a lot of self-help books. Why is yours different? Why did you write yours?
I would say the number one thing that makes mine different is that I wrote it from a very down-to-earth, peer-to-peer perspective. So I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. You know, I'm not some big worldwide renowned life coach. What makes my book unique, and what I find a lot of readers appreciate, is that it's short. You know, it's about a 3-hour read. It's very conversational. And I approached it very much just like I'm talking to a friend, saying, look, this is something that has impacted my life. This is something that has helped me connect better with people. If you're interested, I'd love to share it with you.
Yeah, that asking permission is crucial, isn't it? If you're interested, I'd like to share. That's one of the things I get so excited about, things that I just want to share it with everybody. Hey, if you're open to it, great. And so the book is called I Hear You. Be the fifth caller or texter, 407-373-5959, and you will get a free copy of this book. So let's talk about your shift, your awakening moment. You know, because as you said earlier, you manage a lot of people. Did your management skills change as a result of you learning this key skill? How did it go
Absolutely.
for you? How did share with us how your evolution occurred?
Sure. So perhaps for the listeners, it'd be helpful for me to briefly define validation. So
Sure.
Validation is essentially helping somebody feel heard and understood. What I mean by that is, oftentimes we hear about the importance of listening, right? We say, oh, you should be a good listener. Don't talk over the person, you know, kind of repeat back what you've heard.
Sure.
That's part of listening, but really what we want is not just somebody to understand the words we're saying. We want them to connect with the emotion that we're feeling, right? So if I'm talking to you, Lillian, and I've had a tough day, and I come to you and say, oh my gosh, you'll never believe what happened at work. You know, if you sit and listen, of course, then you say, well, what happened? I start sharing a story. What a lot of people will do is they'll try to make me feel better, right? Air quotes. And they'll do that by offering advice, right? Or saying, oh, don't worry about it. It's all going to be okay. Well, that's invalidating. And what I mean by that is it actually shoots down the emotion that I'm feeling. So if you say, don't worry about it, it'll be okay, or you should do this, you're not allowing me space to just feel the frustration. You're not allowing me space to feel what I'm feeling. And so in contrast, a validating response is to recognize, oh, he's feeling frustrated. Well, why is he feeling frustrated? Well, because this happened at work. And so, you know, if you listen to me instead and go, oh my gosh, that's horrible. That's so tough. I can't believe he said that, right? And you kind of, you talk with me and you connect with me. That's validating. And what I argue in the book is that's what people are starved for. We don't just want people to listen to us. We want them to listen, seek to understand, and then validate us. And so that's where, you know, as I came across this skill in therapy, I started using it in management at work. So I mentioned that I manage about 25 people. It is one of my most valuable manager skills, because when people come to you and they're angry, all they need is validation, and they can put their walls down. If they come to you and they're frustrated because of a project at work, if you can listen to them, understand why they're frustrated, and show them that by validating them, that helps them feel better. And even if they're excited about something and they come to you, you know, you might just say, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, kind of leave it there. That's a letdown, right? They want you to go, oh, that's amazing. Congratulations. You worked so hard on that. Exactly. Right. So that in a nutshell is validation. And I have dozens of stories. We could get into some of them here if you want, but it makes a huge difference in every aspect of life.
Yeah, I love the stories in your book. I still want to hone in about how and why we should validate, especially when we want to. Okay, I will give you a little tip about myself. I'm a fixer. I hear things and I'm already fixing them. And so to me, the way I think I could be helpful at times, not all the time, sometimes I can validate in the proper way, is by saying, well, have you thought of this? Immediately offering results because that's my strength, is to solve problems. I'm a problem solver. Hey, who knew? So here I am trying to help them, but that is discrediting, is what I learned in the book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, there's not a lot of research around validation that I've been able to find, but there are a handful of studies. One of them that really stood out to me is there a handful of researchers sought out to try to prove, you know, physiologically, if you will, the importance of validation. And what they did is they had a number of participants come into a lab, and they asked them to do a series of math problems. You know, basic math got more difficult. And so they'd have them do a handful that were pretty tough. And then they would take a break and they would bring the researchers in and they would stand there and they would ask how they did. And then, a lot of times the participants would say, well, that was tough. I don't know. Like I haven't done this in a while. And they would respond in one of two ways. The first would be invalidating, saying, well, it shouldn't be that hard. Right? Or no one else has complained, or really you should just study. You should just get better, right? Give that advice like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or they would validate them. They would say, yeah, these are tough problems. Yeah, they're hard. Yeah, And what they found is as they did this, they were measuring the heart rate. They were measuring skin conductance levels, which measures stress.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would ask how they're feeling. And what they found is when they invalidated the people, when they gave them advice or tried to say, oh, don't worry about it, or gee, this shouldn't be that hard, people's heart rates elevated, people's skin conductance levels elevated, meaning they were sweating more, and they reported feeling even more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In contrast, when they were validated, they didn't give them any help. They just said, that is really tough. Yeah, these are hard problems. People's heart rates went down, people's skin conductance levels went down, and they reported being much more comfortable and much more confident in their ability to fix the problem.
Very good. Very good. And I love learning about validation in your book, I Hear You, for those of you who would like to be the fifth caller or texter, 407-373-5959. Okay, so as I'm listening to you and I'm hearing you and I want to validate and acknowledge everything you're saying, another part of me says, okay, well, you're just in a pity party. Get over it. And so let's talk about the difference between being helpful and agreeing okay, let's talk about the difference between disagreeing with what's happening and still being validating.
I love that you bring that up because that's one of the number one misconceptions people have about validation, right? So they hear about it and they go, I don't want to agree with someone. What if someone comes to me and they're all upset about their spouse and I know that they're in the wrong, right? Then what do? I don't want to agree with them. Validation is not agreeing with them. What validation is saying, I understand where you're coming from. I understand how you're feeling and why you feel that way. That's different from saying, I agree with you.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example.
Yes.
At work, I had a coworker who came in. He and I have had literally 1 to 2 hour long conversations. When he gets upset or when he gets frustrated about something, we will literally talk for 2 hours because we go in circles. And if I don't agree with him, as I often don't, it's easy for me to say, hey, don't worry about it. Hey, I got this covered. So this particular coworker came into my office one morning and I had just assigned a project to another coworker. And he comes in and he says, Michael, I'm concerned because I don't think this guy is qualified for that work that you gave him. And I immediately jumped in and said, hey, don't worry about it. I've got it covered. I know what I'm doing. That's invalidating, right? I'm saying you shouldn't feel the way you're feeling because I didn't agree with him. What happened next though, is he just shot right back. Yeah, but and he starts going. And then of course I push back and say, hey, I've got this covered. And after a couple of minutes, I realized, oh, here we go. This is another 2 hour conversation.
Yeah.
And then I remembered validation. And I thought, okay, I'm approaching this wrong. There's a better way to do this. Let me validate him. So I took a second and I put myself in his shoes, right? And I said, okay, actually, this does make sense why he's frustrated. He doesn't have the whole picture. And so I told him that. I said, you know what? I can appreciate why you're frustrated, right? From your perspective, all you see is me putting this guy in charge who you don't think is qualified, and you're worried that it's going to affect our brand. You're worried that it's going to this and this and that. And what happened next blew me away. He leaned back and goes, oh, yes, that's exactly it. And then he just waits. And I'm like, whoa, this is the first time that he seems to have put his walls down. Then I said, may I share my side of the story? I think maybe you're missing a few things here. Can I share my perspective? And he said, yeah. And then I was able to share with him why I had assigned that person that project, why I was confident it was all going to work out. And literally within 15 minutes, Lillian, he had a smile on his face. He said, thank you so much for listening and talking. And he left my office. It was incredible to see how I could validate somebody, even if I didn't agree with them. Not only can you must, because it allows them to hear your side of the story. It allows them to put their walls down and accept your feedback and your advice if they want it.
I love it. I love it. And it's like diffusing a bomb. It's the ability to diffuse a bomb. So let's talk about some of the different appropriate responses that we can use as a validating listener or a listener with purpose. And there's a part of me, and I'm going to be honest with you, there's a part of me that feels that some of this is manipulative, but at the other sense, because I want it to be genuine. So in order for it to come as validation, it has to be genuine. So let's talk about some of the appropriate responses that would be considered quote unquote validating.
Sure. Well, first off, I love that you brought up the manipulation concern, because I have felt that. Other people have mentioned that. Well, isn't this just manipulating the person?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Validation falls flat if you aren't connected to the person. So in the book, I say the very first thing you have to have is empathy. That you must connect with the person. So sympathy, right, is saying basically, oh, you poor thing. Like, I'm on the outside looking at you. Oh, that must be so hard. That's not validating. In fact, that to me just makes my skin crawl. And I'm like, don't patronize me, you know?
Yeah.
Empathy, though, is, oh, I feel what you're feeling, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to connect with the person. So first you have to truly understand where they're coming from. Then you can validate them. And so it's not manipulative at that point, because you have to understand how they're feeling. And when you do, then you can truly offer validation. Then they feel that you appreciate them. And that's where the connection happens. That's where the walls come down, because they recognize that you care about them, not that you're just trying to placate them or make them feel better so you can move on with your life.
Yeah. So our intention must be pure. When we validate, we must really be in the right intention, which is to connect with the individual, whether you agree or disagree, which is something that you're bringing out in the book, I Hear You, that made me understand that there is a higher level of honoring another person without having to agree with them. So let's talk about some of the appropriate responses that you use in the book that are really good, that I use some of the time, not all the time.
Sure. So I mentioned earlier that validation isn't just for negative emotions, right? You don't only use validation when someone's frustrated or upset. But if they do, someone comes to you and they are upset, validating responses can look like, you might say, oh my gosh, that's so frustrating. Mm-hmm. Right? Oh, that must be so difficult. I mentioned in the book a very basic framework of validation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I say a validating response, one, identifies an emotion, and two, offers justification for that. So what that looks like is, of course, understanding their situation. So Lillian, again, if we go back to this instance, maybe you're frustrated with something with a coworker. You say, oh my gosh, can't believe this happened. So-and-so said this to me, yada, yada, yada. Well, if I'm connected to you and I'm just as frustrated as you, I can say that, right? Oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. That simple sentence is validating, because it shows people, oh, he's frustrated too. I'm not crazy.
Very good. Very good. And with that, be calling 407-373-5959. Fifth caller or texture will win the book, I Hear You. This will improve all your relationships. And we're going to continue our conversation with Michael Sorensen when we return worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Good job. It's about getting it. It's about getting it. And it took me a while. And I'll be honest with you. Like I said, I'm a fixer. There are times where I can't connect, especially when coaching, because I'm also a life coach. You almost get into this mindset of, okay, this are the steps. This is what you do. But in the real world, you can get blind swiped by people's emotions that drag you or suck you in. And because you're exposed to a lot of people, I'm exposed to a lot of people, that energy can zap you. So we've got to protect ourselves. And in doing that, I have forgotten the most important tool in listening, which is validation. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, it is. Well, and one of the important parts of that is holding boundaries, right? We have to learn how to put appropriate boundaries. And if someone's just walking all over us and they're constantly complaining, it's entirely appropriate for us to say, hey, I would love to talk more. I'm distracted right now. Can we resume this conversation later, right? Or something to that extent, so that we do make sure that we do set appropriate boundaries and that we're not always the person people complain to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So when we come back on the air, I'm going to go over my how people can get a hold of me, and then I'll reintroduce you to my listeners. But I do want to nail some of the ways that we can validate, some simple words, but really, truly the emotion, not like, wow, oh, that's terrible. Let me one up you. So those are things that you kind of get, there has to be a continuum to the validation. It's not just about, okay, done, check it off the list. Now I can really fix you, So those are some of the things I'd love to, kind of like the protocol, I guess the word protocol is not the correct word. Maybe I am explaining it properly, but the step by step, how do I learn and how do I embrace, being able to, other than buy your book, I hear you, what are different ways I can do to kind of establish a pattern where it's genuine and, ways to sharpen your skill. How did it happen to you? Because I'm sure that people will say, oh, now that you're an expert on validation, you really didn't validate me. Screw you. So who do you think you are, Michael Sorensen?
Right. Is that something you want me to dive into now or wait till we're back officially on the air?
Well, you can, how much time do we have, Brian? A minute. Okay. So before, I do want you to talk about the steps that you have in the book. And I also want to talk about, I loved maybe we could talk about now your first date. We don't have a lot of time now, but that first date that you started the book, at the beginning of the book, where you talk about how you thought this was not going to be a good thing, but how validation changed that for you.
Absolutely. Should we start with that once we're back on?
Yeah, well, we've got about maybe 30 seconds before we go back on. So we'll do that when we come back on the air. So write those things down, because once I say it, sometimes I don't repeat it. So it's I always say, don't talk about it now, because when you talk about it now, it won't go on the air. And by the way, nodding is good on TV, not on radio. So
meaning, can you hear me nod, or you're?
Yeah, no, it means that in the radio, they can't see you nodding.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So
do you want me to give more verbal feedback? Or
yes.
I'm cognizant. I don't want to over.
No. Yes is yes. Say yes or no.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
that way. Yeah. So you'll hear me go, oh, you're nodding your head, Michael.
Sure.
Here we go. This is halfway point. Can you believe it?
Or leave her a voicemail.
Wow.
407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where we always learn and grow together. I'm your host, Lillian McDermott, and you can hear us worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. The purpose of the show is to not only learn and grow together, but develop some techniques that we can use without having to go to a therapist. I'm sure Michael can give us stories about his therapy sessions and the costs that you save. Yes. This is a free show. This is a free show that you can utilize and grow with us together. The person who started the show is not the person who is here today. It's always about learning and growing together and taking 100% responsibility for our life. I think that is the key word, is ownership, responsibility, saying, yeah, you may have hurt me, but I'm still going to do whatever it takes to live the life that I want to live, no matter what. How do you take a negative and turn it into a positive? All those things is what we talk about here when it comes to our health, our wealth, our mindset. Every aspect of our life, when we take responsibility for it, changes our life. So I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Please become a subscriber. And while you're there, check out all the little buttons that you can hit, like YouTube. This show, we're talking on and off the air. And the conversations that we have off the air sometimes are more powerful, because now we can go deeper. And so I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com and click onto the YouTube channel and subscribe there, because when you subscribe to both, it gets sent to you automatically to your email account, your smartphones, your tablets, wherever it is that you want it to go, and you can listen to it over and over. And this could be a great growth experience for all of us, not just me. For all of us. I'm not the expert. I'm the friend that brings the experts on the show. And I'm sure Michael is having a hard time with hearing that he's the expert, but we are all at times in our lives. We don't have to be perfect. We just need to be open and curious as to what is the other person feeling. So while you're at whenyouneedafriend.com, I want you to check out my sponsors. Without my sponsors, this show would not happen. So please go there, check out how you can support our sponsors the way they are supporting the show. And so check me out on all the podcasts, iTunes, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, and also You can call or text. Be the fifth caller or texter, 407-373-5959, to get your free copy of I Hear You. And the tagline is the surprisingly simple skill behind extraordinary relationships. And this is really true, Michael. Thank you so much for coming on the show today to share your journey and what you have learned. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, love it. Love it. Okay. So this was surprisingly much needed in my life because I've been dealing with my mom and dad who are needing lots of care now. And they just went into an assisted living facility just last night. And so this is my first day without my parents. And so I miss them terribly. So with that in mind, there is a bit of, tough it up, buttercup, for my dad. And with my mom, who's dealing with advanced stage cognitive decline, it was, you need to be strong for her. It was, forget about you, focus on them. How do we give us some steps that we can become stronger, build the validation muscle so that we can get outside ourselves and really connect with people. So let's talk about the steps.
Sure, absolutely. So in the book, I mentioned what I call the 4-step method. I tried to come up with a better way to phrase it. I couldn't, but basically it's something as I looked over thousands of conversations that I've had to other people in groups that I've been in and friends that I've had, tried to deconstruct what makes something validating, what in a conversation allows you to connect with others. And so I distilled it down into what I call the 4-step method. And I'll hit on the 4 steps briefly, and we can dive in, Lillian, as much as you want to. Step 1 is listen empathically, right? So we've talked about that, but listening with the intent to connect and understand. Mm-hmm. Step 2 is to validate the emotion, right? So we've kind of talked about validation as being identifying an emotion and giving justification for feeling that, right? That must be so hard. Oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. Mm-hmm. Or that is so amazing. That's validating. So step 1, listen empathically. Step 2, validate the emotion. Step 3 is where you offer advice or encouragement if appropriate. I mentioned in the book, you must ask permission. You shouldn't just launch in with advice. No one loves unsolicited advice. But once you validated someone, then it can be appropriate to offer that advice. Mm-hmm. And then the 4th step is to validate again, right? So listen empathically, validate the emotion, offer advice or encouragement if appropriate, and then validate again. I have found over the years that using that basic framework, it gives a nice direction, a nice structure. Now, I say basic, and I say basic structure because it really isn't a science. There's really no right or wrong way to validate. You can go through that whole thing in an 1.5-hour conversation multiple times, or you can go through those 4 steps in 30 seconds, right? If you're talking to me and you go, and I say, holy cow, that's amazing. That is so cool, right? I've listened, I've connected to you. I know what you're feeling. You're excited. I'm excited with you. So I'm validating that. It's not appropriate for me to offer advice. And when we're done with the conversation, I say, oh my gosh, congratulations again. That is so cool. That's validating. So it can be very basic, but that framework I have found has given people a basic idea, a nice direction on how to connect better with people.
Very good. Okay, so here's the deal. I understand the steps. I understand the concept of the steps, but how do we become aware that we're not using the steps? How do we stop one-upping people? You think you're upset. Let me tell you about my coworker. Look what he did to me today. Yeah. How do we stop the one-upping? How do we stop the fixing, which I'm really guilty about that. And so how do we stop ourselves so that we can train ourselves to be better listeners?
So I will say I'm the same way, Lillian. I definitely identify as a fixer. And, I wrote a book on the topic. You'd think I would be perfect at it. But literally just the other night, I was talking with my girlfriend and she was going through a tough time. And I jumped right into giving her advice, right? And I was like, oh, that's, you should do this. You should do that. And
don't should on me. Don't should on me.
No, exactly. No shoulding, right? And so to answer your question, how do you know when you're not doing it? Well, pretty quickly she got defensive. Yeah. Right? And she's like, well, I did that, but da da da. And of course I give her more advice and she gets defensive again. And that's when I thought, uh-oh, I haven't validated her, right? She didn't want my advice. She just wanted me to appreciate how she was feeling. And so I took a few steps back and I said, you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't mean, I launched into advice here. Tell me more, right? And she started talking again. And then I was able to listen and go, oh, of course, she's feeling embarrassed. She's feeling whatever, right? And then I was able to validate her. So I find that people want validation anytime they're sharing something with you.
Mhm.
So if they're coming to you with a great story, if they're coming to you with a problem, if they're coming to you with any kind of feeling, they're wanting validation. The tricky thing is most people don't know that. Most people don't know that's what they're wanting. All they know is if you try to fix them, if you should all over them, they get defensive and they don't know why. But I have found that it's actually because they wanted validation.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, absolutely. So Validation 101 you cover in the book. As a matter of fact, you have a chapter called Validation 101. Be the fifth caller or texter 407-373-5959 and win a copy of this extraordinary book that will help you build and improve your relationships. Okay, so then you talked about empathy. So, so there's the empathy part, is to that connection, understanding, even if you don't agree with the situation, how do you get to that place where you go, oh, I'm so sorry, I understand, which is not what you mean. It's like, I get it. I get how you feel this way. Empathizing is different than the sympathy. Oh, poor baby. So let's go with the empathy. Let's train ourselves to be empathic, not sympathetic.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, as you're talking, a good experience that illustrates this was actually the very first experience that kind of set me off on learning about this is this. Yeah, this first day. So it's the very first chapter of my book. So I had just started learning about validation. I just started going to therapy. And I met this girl. I don't even remember where I met her, but she was bubbly. She was friendly. She was outgoing. I thought, hey, I'd love to take this woman on a date. So I asked her out. And that next weekend, I just figured I'd keep it casual. I say, hey, let's go grab some ice cream. Mm-hmm. And so I pick her up and we're driving over there. And she isn't very open. We're not really connecting. She keeps looking at the clock. She give me one word answers. And I'm like, what? Like, did I misread this? Like, is she not interested? I must be missing something here. And it got to the point where after like 15 minutes, I was about ready to take her home because I thought she's clearly not interested. I clearly misread something here. And so we were driving back and I asked her a question about her family and she paused and indicated it's a sensitive subject. And that's when I thought, oh, I might have missed something here. This might be it. And she said, oh, my parents are in the middle of a divorce. And I paused and I thought, that's what's going on here. Mm-hmm. And my parents have not been divorced. My parents are not divorced. So I didn't understand, right? I couldn't feel empathy right there. But I told her that. I just said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And she said, it's okay, it's fine. Right? And she was bracing for advice or feedback. And I just said, it's not fine. That's got to be incredibly difficult. And she said, yeah, it actually really sucks. And she started going in and talking about it. And she opened up as I refrained from validating, as I just said, you know what, I don't understand, but I just let her feel. Mm-hmm. It completely changed our dynamic. And we ended up talking for an hour and a half in my car. Mm-hmm. She had been so invalidated from people in her life. So many people said, well, you should just tough it out. You should just put a smile on your face. You got to be strong. Mm-hmm. That's not what I want to feel. That's not what I need to hear, is what she was telling me. Mm-hmm. And that validation was like water. She was starved for it. And that was one of the first things that made me realize, oh my gosh, like I wrote in my journal that night, I felt so much more connected to her. I could tell that she felt connected to me simply because I was trying to empathize with her. I respected how she was feeling and I showed her that.
Very good. Very good. That's how you start the book. And I remember reading about that the first time I heard about your book. And I thought, we have missed out with social media, with all the different kind of false connections that we've made, that we really just need this reminder. So I want to acknowledge you, Michael, for taking the time to write your thoughts down, because it's so important for all of us. And you, my listening friend, can get a free copy. Be the fifth caller or texter, 407-373-5959. And we're going to continue our conversation with Michael Sorensen when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. I love that story, Michael. I really did. It just set the tone for your book. And, and I have to be honest, as I'm reading your book, I'm thinking, okay, this is just another book. This is just another, but it was great to have that reminder that this is a key thing. Can you share, and I know we know when we are not validating someone else. You said defensiveness in the other person. the pushback from the other person, then we go stronger. And when I say we, I mean I. Okay, well, let me, you know, because I grew up with a family full of right fighters. And so it's taken me a long time to kind of like detach myself from that. But when you're around your family, it kind of gets sucked into that. Or, you know, it's like you want to be the one that is the person that kind of brings the sanity to the whole thing, you know, the hero. So let's talk about with you, how have you learned to kind of detach yourself and say, okay, I've got to practice what I preach, especially around my family. How does that work for you?
And is that, again, do we dive in now or?
Yes, let's dive in now, because now people can tune in and watch this segment.
Perfect. Yeah. So your question, make sure I understand appropriately, is how do I make sure that I'm validating properly amongst my family, people who know that I've written the book?
And people who I know intimately, that you just want to fix, that you just want to help, that you just want to, and I'm asking not only for our followers that are viewing this, but for myself too, because it's always, you cannot be you're not the expert in your home. You know, you're not, you're just Michael. I'm just Lily, you know?
Right. Well, especially among family members. So again, in the book, I mentioned that third step that's when you give advice or feedback, if appropriate. I hound in there the importance of asking permission to give advice or to give feedback. And the reason is, I don't really think I need to explain myself. Most people probably nod their heads and go, yes, I hate it when people just give me unsolicited advice. So, and especially in a family setting, it can get personal quickly, right? So if you're talking to your sibling, your spouse, your whatever, they're sick and tired of having you fix them oftentimes. But there are times when they do want feedback. There are times when they do want to know how to fix the problem. And so I find that validate first always, right? There's never a time when you can't validate somebody. And then you can say, oh gosh, that's a tough situation. I have some thoughts on it. Do you want to hear my opinion?
Yeah.
And when you ask them, it shows a tremendous amount of respect for them.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't come across as, oh, I know how to fix your problem, I know what to do. If you ask permission, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, yeah, what do you think? And then they're open to your feedback. Then you can speak freely, and hopefully you can provide them with insight or direction.
Very good. Very good. So let's end this next segment, which is our last segment. Can you believe it?
Crazy.
Yes. And, you know, it's so funny how you and I started this show with a lot of things going wrong, right? Like, oh my God. Validating each other was great.
Right.
So thank you for your validation, Michael.
Likewise.
Okay. So here we go.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where we always grow and learn from one another. And today's teacher is Michael S. Sorensen, and you can find him at michaelssorensen.com. And the book that you can call today, 407-373-5959, is I Hear You. And I want to acknowledge him for being so young and identifying this wonderful skill that we don't even know we're missing out on. And so thank you, Michael, for this. If you want to go to michaelsorensen.com, you can also go to whenyouneedafriend.com to get a copy of this book. It's right there waiting for you to click on, and it just takes you to Amazon, or you can go to your favorite bookstore to get it. So, okay, Michael, let's talk about the real world scenarios in situations where you might not agree with the individual and what they're complaining about, and how the best way to respond in validation.
Absolutely. And in the book, you mentioned at the very end, I have a whole section called real world situations, right? Where we dive into a handful of different experiences, from work, with dealing with your spouse, helping your children. I just find that it's helpful to see examples to better understand how to validate and how to connect with people.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit earlier about how to give advice to people, right? How to help them without butting heads, without making them feel like you are placating them.
Yeah.
One of the experiences that I talk about in the book is actually my brother called me one afternoon. He was going through a really tough time. And I, at this point, had studied and learned about validation. And I thought, okay, let's validate him here, right? So he's talking, and he doesn't know how to deal with this. And as he's talking, I think of the perfect solution.
Of
Right? I'm
course.
like, oh, I know exactly how to fix this, right? And so we're talking, and I connect with him. Like I did understand where he was coming from. I had been in a similar situation, and so I told him that. I said, oh my gosh, like that's really hard, right? You think this and that happens, right? And I offered that validation, and then I thought, I'm going to ask him what he's going to do about it first before I offer my solution. And so I said, what are you going to do about it? And he paused for a second, and he said, you know what? I think I'm just going to do X, Y, and Z. And it was exactly the same advice that I was just about to give him, right? He already knew how to fix the issue. He didn't need a solution. What he needed was a listening ear. What he needed was me to connect with him, to understand where he was feeling from. And after that, he was able to fix the issue on his own. And that has been a truth that I see over and over and over again. Most of the time, people already know how to fix the problem that they're going through. What they need from you is love, connection, understanding. And if you ask them what they're going to do, if you ask to give advice, sometimes they'll be open to it. And other times they'll just say, you know what, I'm good. I just appreciate you listening.
Yeah. What about people that rub you the wrong way? How do you validate people that rub you the wrong way and poke you in the eye constantly? Ooh, yeah.
Definitely harder. And yet all the more important to validate them. So a prime example is when you get into an argument, right? Let's say with your spouse, or let's say with a coworker. Emotions are running high. The last thing you want to do is say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I mean, you're so hard done to, right? That's the last thing you want to do. And you don't have to go to that extent. The power of validation is, though, it helps them take their walls down, right? Arguments persist because neither person feels heard. Neither person feels understood, right? And so they keep making their own point over and over. Well, you did this. Well, you did that. You always do that. You don't get anywhere. And so if you can get to a spot where you take a breath, if someone's really rubbing you the wrong way, if someone's upsetting you, and try to understand where they're coming from, even a little bit, and show them that, then it can put their walls down. So I had an incident with a coworker where that was happening, right? I was like, oh my gosh, I do not want to talk to you. But when I thought about it, I realized from her limited perspective, she did have reason to be upset, right? She thought that I was acting completely, going a completely different direction than I was. And so I said, okay, you know what? I do appreciate, how frustrating that would be if you thought that I was doing this, right? I honestly, I would be just as frustrated. So I can appreciate that. That's not what I was doing. Can I share with you what my intention was? And just the fact that I had at least taken a second to pause and recognize how she was feeling, she said, yes, okay, tell me. And then, instantly the tension came down in the argument there, and we were able to discuss.
Yeah. Yeah. I also want to, interesting. I want to go back to the example that you gave, asking, what are you going to do about it, and how the individual was going to solve the issue the way you were going to suggest, except you allowed them, you gave them the power to make the decision over themselves. I just want to say, most of us know what to do. We just refuse to do it. And so I just wanted to go back and touch upon that, because I wanted to acknowledge that. Then the next thing, going back to the irate situation, people that don't deserve for me to just validate them. I don't want to validate them because I am now wounded or whatever the situation. Not that has ever happened to me, of course. So
Never, of course.
Let's talk about boundaries. There are boundaries that we need to set for ourselves, and you talk about that as well. So let's talk about this on and how we can set boundaries for ourselves, because sometimes we are just not ready to validate or ready to be stop what we're doing to validate somebody else. Totally.
And we could spend a whole hour on the topic of boundaries, right? It would be a fantastic episode. You probably already have one. But you're right. We shouldn't just feel like we need to be walked all over. We aren't always in an emotional spot to connect with somebody. And earlier on, I would try to do it anyway, even if I was distracted at work, even if I wasn't really connected with the person. What I found was more beneficial was just being real with the person. So if I have somebody come into my office and I can tell that they want to talk, but I am laser focused on a deadline, I found that it's most impactful to just say, hey, honestly, I would love to talk. I'm really distracted right now with work. Can we talk in an hour, right? Or can we talk this evening? That's being authentic, right? That's just being real. Hey, I'm not in a great spot to talk right now. And I find that people appreciate that. And so we talked at the beginning, Lillian, right, about the importance of empathy. You can't fake this stuff, right? People can see right through it. Even if they don't know how, they know when we're being genuine. They know when we're being authentic or not. And so if you're not in a good spot, just tell them and just say, hey, I would love to connect with you. I'm not in a good spot right now. Can we chat later? Most people will respect that and appreciate that.
Very good. Yes, and I agree with you. There are people that believe that they're great multitaskers. I used to be one of them. And so we think that, okay, I can listen and I am typing. But the reality is you're not. You're half listening.
Yeah.
And I always know when people are half listening because it just doesn't work. You miss out on things. And for us to think that we can listen while we're typing or that we're focusing or reading on something, that's just delusional. It doesn't exist.
Right.
It's an illusion. So what would you like to say about that? I mean, for people that think that they are great multitaskers and can listen or hear and do whatever they're doing.
I would say that you're wrong. I hate to be so blunt, but yeah, you can't, right? We pick up on so many nonverbal cues that it's just obvious to the person who's talking, and it's rude,
Yeah.
it's disrespectful. And so, you know, in the book, in the listen empathically section, I just give a handful of tips. You know, if someone's talking to you and you have your computer in front of you, just close the laptop. Even if the screen's off, close it, because that shows them, oh, you know, she or he's respecting me. If you have your earbuds in and they come up, don't just take one out, take them both out, right? If the TV's not in the living room, turn off the TV. Like all these little things that, you know, I laugh at, but it makes a difference. Because if you imagine, if you walk into somebody's office and they close their laptop or they put their phone away or something, and then they just turn and they look at you, like that sends a huge signal of you're important. You know, I'm here, I'm going to listen to you. And that makes a huge difference, especially in today's world where we're so bombarded with distraction. We have to be that vigilant about shutting it out in order to truly connect with other people.
I love it. I love, you know, I'm so grateful that you wrote this book because again, it's a reminder. And for those of you who'd like a free copy, be the fifth caller or texter, 407-373-5959. The book is called I Hear You by Michael S. Sorensen, who never thought he would ever write a book, but it was calling you. It was oozing out of you. So I want to thank you for taking the time to share what you've learned. Is there anything that you would like to leave my listening friend with as you end this show today?
I would just ask that they reach out. If you have any questions, any success stories, any examples, I'd love to connect with readers and listeners. So feel free to, you know, reach out via michaelssorensen.com or email me, michael@ihearyoubook.com.
Yes, very good. And so for those of you who'd like to get a copy as well, to make it easy for you, it's at whenyouneedafriend.com, and just go to shop now and just click on it too, so that you can start your validation journey and that you can share with Michael as well. Michael, thank you so much for being on the show today. I've really loved speaking with you and getting to know your heart much better.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Now listen up. Yes, just listen up and assess where you're at in this validation process, and your relationships will change. Please remember, I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Sorry, Michael, I forgot to tell you. Join me with the ever. Let's do that real quick. Make it the best day ever. Normally I say that, but today we had so many distractions.
There was a lot going on. Yeah.
And it was interesting how you and I did the same thing. I shut down my video because I was trying to set up my office, and
Yeah.
we both said, it's like, okay, I'm shutting off from you. You're not going to see me. I'm not going to see you. So it worked out. So I you know, it's wonderful that, that these are little things that we can do for one another. And still, you know, we don't have to agree on everything, and it doesn't have to flow perfectly. You don't have to be an expert in order to try something new. So thank you so much, Michael.
You bet. Thank you for the opportunity. I do appreciate it.
Yes. And for those of you, thank you for taking this journey with us that are watching today. And I look forward to our next conversation.